Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where it's about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Hightown. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. First and foremost, let's start off with Jackie, especially with the whole Kizzle thing. I figured she'd have the reaction she did. The moment Alan throws it out there of like, oh yeah, like, your boy, well, we found Kizzle's body. Your boy, Junior looks good for it. She's like, no, Mike, Junior is a screw-up, but there's no way he's responsible for doing something like this. Oh, but we have a witness. It's like, who? It's like, Osito. It's like, you're taking Osito's word? Like, because it's like, yeah, they were probably like, if Junior did anything, it was out of self-defense. Like, they most likely were, we heard it from Frankie himself that, like, Frankie was trying to clean house, so most likely, like, they were going out there to kill Junior, and, like, it was self-defense. It's also like, how can you take Osito's words? I mean, even you last episode, I mean, granted, this is from my perspective, but it is the thing of like, yeah, you were literally being like you didn't really believe him considering who it's coming from, but finding the body, it's just for Alan, a win is a win, and they need this. This could like go back to like unscrewing them from the debacle that Ray left them with, essentially. So Jackie taking it upon herself. Well, because I think what sparked all this, yeah, because it was like Donna showed up and she was kind of a witness. And as obviously it's like, right, her and Jackie, they're not in the best place. But it's the whole conversation about Kizzle, which is like, right, if Junior killed him, I'm glad he did because that was a terrible person. Whatever Junior did, he most likely did it for the sake of our family, which obviously Jackie's not cool with that because I mean, there's nothing that can be done. I mean, Junior's dead, but still, like, this is his reputation being like, oh, he's the one that murdered, like, he will be labeled a murderer. Because especially because she's under the impression, like, right, he's like, I killed someone, I'm responsible. It's like, granted, he wasn't talking about Kizzle, but that's a whole other lane of things she wasn't aware of. You know, obviously, she never found out all that Junior played a role in, but that's obviously the Kizzle thing wasn't what he was talking about. But aside from that, it's just for her, it's just whatever, like, if he was threatening, this Kizzle guy was threatening me or our daughter, of course, like, I'm glad Junior killed him, like, you know, whatever. And obviously Jackie's trying to talk to him, because it's like, first, it's like, wait, you're working at Xavier's? Like, Jorge and Frankie run that place, like, they're the reason why Junior's there, but she's like, no, you can blame, it's not Frankie, it wasn't Osito, Junior killed Junior. And I think it's time we both kind of accepted that. You know, because even at one point, Jackie was like, you need to, like, if you're working there, at the very least, you could work for me. Like, that way, you can get some money, and you'll be getting justice for Junior. But for her, it's just like, she's got to do whatever she can. She's got to hustle and bustle to make up for the fact that Junior's not around, you know, but take care of their daughter. It's the, you know, she's doing all that she can. But, obviously, just this whole thing doesn't sit well with Jackie, so she visits Osito himself. It's like, oh, how's the leg? Yeah, how's the shoulder type of situation. And obviously she's like, yo, so I've heard you've been talking shit about my boy. And he's like, oh, Junior? So it comes down to it where it's like, and the way Osito's talking, once again, he could be full of crap, but it does seem like, you know, he is sincere, potentially, about the fact that he had nothing to do with Junior's death. That he was like, yeah, like, I gave him money in his pocket, gave him a new opportunity, like, gave him a fresh start. I told him to leave that stuff behind. It's like, I love that boy too. So it's like, yeah, but if this is someone you love, like, how can you try and make him take the fall for something we both know you're responsible for? But he was like, it ain't gonna bother him much now that he's gone. So, I mean, that's the thing too, like, Junior's dead, you know, it's not like, yeah, but it's still like, why should he take the fall for something Osito did? You know, but Osito did it, and for Junior in the first place, but still, because obviously it's like, this is one of her closest friends, you know, this is someone she really cared about, and she don't want his name kind of run through the mud. But I love that Osito's like, yeah, but you actually, your boy, he really had your back, like, for reals, because honestly, how things went down, they would have went down very differently if it wasn't for your boy Junior saying, like, Jackie wouldn't even be here right now. So that's a lot to kind of deal with. And then Alan's chewing her out later on because it's like, because she's like, yeah, like, Osito clearly told me he did it. And he's like, oh, the chain of command, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, you went and just ran your mouth off to the lieutenant, pointing Junior as the fall guy. So if Jackie bringing this stuff up will make you look stupid in front of him when you have to backtrack. Like, actually, we don't think it was Junior. We think it's Osito. Especially because Osito, you're setting him up to be your CI, so you can't have anything that will muddy that water. Like, so that's what it comes down to. So it's like, for him, kind of, like, yes, it's the, you know, because of Ray, he's going to, like, Alan's going to be super, like, uptight about it. But it is mostly because, like, Jackie's going against his CI, and it's like, I'm trying to foster this relationship. Like, he knows Osito probably did it, but it's like, no, it fits better narratively if Junior's the one that took the fall for it. This way, Osito looks like a cleaner CI that he can turn, I guess. But also, it will make him look, because especially when the lieutenant was like, oh yeah, put your name, and he's like, oh, thanks, sir, let me get back to it. But it's like, yeah, all that could kind of get taken away, and just he'll come out looking stupid if Jackie brings up, like, the whole Junior didn't do it, that it was most likely Osito, the person he's shifting to be a CI. So it's like, that's what it mainly comes down to. But we also know when it comes to Jackie, how awkward things are between her and Leslie, because it's like it's just like, yeah, like, you know, she's actually kind of fine about it. She's like, oh yeah, we good? Because Jackie's like, we cool? She's like, yeah, it's fine. Like, we hooked up. That, you know, it don't have to be anything weird, you know. People, and, you know, from the same department hook up all the time. Granted, not a good idea, but yeah. But it turns out, like, she talks from experience, because we, at the same time, we got some of that conversation with Ray, that it's like, yeah, he was sleeping with someone from his department. Turns out it was Leslie. You were sleeping together for a year, which I love that Jackie was like, wait, so you fucked Ray and I fucked you, and it was almost like, so it's almost like I fucked Ray. She's like, yeah, he might be an asshole, but man, is he good at it. She's like, oh, no, I don't want to hear it, you know. So I thought that was so fascinating, because it's like, yeah, that's why both of their respective situations blew up. It's like, oh, cool, like, her marriage ended, so did his, because that affair, it just turned into a shit show. But obviously, like, they're keeping an eye on Frankie and Jorge, but Jorge and them, like, already know what's what. I wonder if they have people on the inside, or is it probably just like, we noticed that there's this car that's been there parked hours, so they probably clock anyone in and out. So it's like, oh, like, they probably got security cameras or people in security being like, oh yeah, pointing that out. But Jackie got pissed the moment Jorge showed his ass. It'd be like, we know what you're up to. Goes in there, like, Jackie being the boss, being like, yo, where's Jorge? And ran into Frankie. It's their face-to-face since he got out, and I love it. And it's just like, because he likes Jackie, because it's like, man, you got balls, you know, like, rolling up on me like that in prison. But he's like, it's different now. I'm a citizen just defending myself, put the gun on the table. And it's like, yo, also be like, yo, this is my partner, show him some fucking respect. And it's just like, Jackie goes hard, dude. I think that's also why her and Ray get along so well, because they are kind of two peas in a pod. They're very, like, they have that like impulsiveness. They both have it. So I thought that was interesting. But Frankie definitely didn't like it when it was like, oh yeah, like, what kind of pussy gets his woman to fight his battles for him? Because it's like, yeah, like, that's why, like, she was taunting him by being like, yeah, that's why, like, Renee fucked Ray. And then, like, the moment she left, like, he was frowning, because it's like, yeah, that Ray has been like a hot button that everyone, he's got his cousin Jorge bringing it up. It's just a constant thing in the back of his mind, like, yeah, he co-signed her doing that, but it still makes him feel like, could there be something more? Was it just, like, was there more to it besides just, yeah, like, she legitimately fell for Ray until, like, she felt like he screwed her over. So she ended up choosing a side. She ended up choosing Frankie's at the end of the day. But then we also had Leslie and Jackie hanging out with Ed and his wife, which was actually super adorable. I love that his wife is like, so are you a lesbian? And she's like, It's like, don't worry, like, I have my sister's kid is a non-binary, so that's why I asked. I was like, I love that she's trying to be like, she's trying to be an ally. She's trying to be like, oh, but, you know, but if you're a lesbian, that has no problem. I'm asking because, you know, I'm cool with that. Like, if someone's got that energy about it. But I do love that. It's almost like, yeah, like Leslie being around that weird, just the dynamic that Jackie and Ed have. It's actually, I really like their dynamic, that father-daughter relationship they kind of have. And Leslie kind of flowed into it very nicely. But obviously they talk about, like, the sharks that have kind of, like, there's the big fish, the guy they're looking for. There's like, yeah, there's $1 million industry. He's doing some, like, super shady stuff. And, Ed's wrote up some stuff about him. I'm wondering, is that going to have any like, it's just like it's a big fish in a metaphorical and literal, not as literal, but metaphorical in the, like, oh, they're looking for, like, a big time bad guy they've been trying to track down for a while, and Jackie wants to be there when Ed goes questioning him. But part of me wonders, is that going to be like a separate thing, or is that going to be somehow wrapped up into the beast that is this whole Frankie and Jorge thing? Like, maybe there's some connection there, like, you know, because it's like, yeah, this is dealing with poaching and stuff like that, but part of me wonders, is there some connection? Maybe, maybe not. But when it was all said and done, though, Donna was there when Jackie made her scene at Xavier's, and so she makes a point to call up Jackie, and it turns out, yeah, things aren't so copacetic between Daisy and Jorge. So at some points they seem okay, but like when they went out to dinner, he was like, "Who said you get anything? Like who asked you what you wanted?" And then she was just kind of like, "Oh, it's like he treats her like crap." It's like, yeah, he was talking about he was going to wife her and everything, but it turned out, like, Donna heard at the club, like, some of the girls talk, and apparently, like, he's been pimping her out. So it's like, right, like, this is a guy that won't treat you right. You thought you were meeting, like, your daddy, like, he's going to, like, your sugar daddy, he was going to take care of you, everything was going to be good, and it's like, no, he pimps you out to other people, so Jackie and Leslie are going to potentially, like, shift her over, and it's like, oh, to CI. So it's like, oh, cool. And then they immediately go back to Jackie's place and bang. And I think it speaks volume that, like, Leslie's like, oh, let me make you feel good, but Jackie's like, nah, like Jackie. I think it's just interesting knowing that, like, Jackie takes control in the bed. I think that's just kind of an interesting aspect of her personality. Because, it's a thing to say, but, like, if you look at every, like, encounter, like, sexual encounter, like, Jackie's had over the course of the series, like, just the few that we've gotten, like, she always takes the lead in those situations. She's always, like, because I think it makes her, I mean, maybe the argument could be, like, well, she spirals out in her own personal life, so when it comes to sex, it's a place that she gets to control. I mean, like, dude, you're, like, you kind of have, like, you have the control of the situation where you're taking the lead, in, like, at least from Jackie's perspective, when it comes to sex, is, like, being able to have, like, someone, for lack of a better term, in the palm of your hands, and just, like, being able to decide whether they get off or not, just, like, I think Jackie's got the match touch. It's just kind of all I'm saying. I just think it's such an interesting element of, like, yeah, you notice it every time she's ever, like, you ever see her have sex, it's always about her having control. I think that's so fascinating. It's like, she just, yeah, like, when Leslie tried to, and it's like, no, she's like, nah, like, let me take control. It's like, I think that's so fascinating. I think that's just, like, an interesting character trait. But, yeah, that's going to get weird and awkward. I mean, granted, neither one of them is in a relationship, so, like, because, like, for her, like, Leslie made a point of, like, oh, hookups are not a problem. It's not like, oh, like, it's not anything serious, which, like, Jackie had made reference to, like, oh, that's kind of fucked up, because, like, all my relationships were kind of like that. There was, like, no, like, real relationship, but if, like, I'm sure it's going to eventually turn awkward partnership-wise, but for now, I mean, it's not like the Ray situation, because it will definitely compromise their work, potentially, I think. It'll probably screw things up, but, I mean, they're both single, they're adults. It's probably just mainly, like, the whole, yeah, screwing, I mean, their situation with Ray and hers blowing up like that was because they were both having an affair. But, I mean, in this situation, both her and Jackie are single, but they're still... dating your coworker is kind of a big no-no anyway. I don't know. It's just, I think, from a job perspective, that's going to be an issue. But I think on a personal level, that could... I mean, hopefully it all works out. Everything stays good and copacetic, but we'll see. So, that's their side of things. Another angle to this is the whole Renee situation, obviously getting checked out with the pregnancy, obviously worried about, because she even asked the doctor, like, oh, is there a way to tell if the baby's white and Dominican? And it's like, oh, like, there is a fraternal test thing you can take, but it is kind of dangerous. It's dangerous for the baby, so we don't want to do it unless it's necessary. Is it necessary? It's like, no. I pretty much know who the dad is. It's just like, she just was hoping it wouldn't be what it is. But, yeah, it can either come to term or terminate, and obviously she's leaning more towards termination, because last thing she needs is Frankie to find out. Because he already, like, has a chip on his shoulder about the whole Ray thing, especially to the point he takes her, Jorge, as well as, Renee and Daisy out to where Ray works just to start some shit. And it sucks because Ray was doing so good this episode too. The fact is that, him and his ex, it's like, he's like, hey, I'm sorry, I screwed up a lot. But he's like, hey, if you need anything fixed, the toilet, whatever, hey, me and Nikki can work on it. It's good. Like, I hope you're okay with this. She's like, yeah, if you want to see Nikki or whatever, fine. She's even saying, like, I'm not that much of a bitch to, you don't need that, like, come work here on the house or the basement just to have an excuse to see your son. Because Nikki already has an idea of, like, what happens, like, oh, you screwed someone at work, that's why you lost your job and stuff. He's like, oh, you know about that? She's like, yeah, I know, that's why you and mom broke up in the first place. She didn't say anything about it, but I overheard a conversation, you know, and so Ray is trying to make up for it. You know, he wasn't, anything he's done, it's like, I've never done it to hurt you or your mom, but he's trying to be better. He wants to do more, but he's also saying, like, right, only if Nikki wants. If you're okay with it. And even she was kind of like, yeah, like, if Nikki's okay with it, you know, I co-sign it. And they were joking about the dirty dancing and everything, which I love the hard cut from, like, not the hard cut, but the transition from, like, yeah, like, she's watching it, and he's like, well, I got to get to work, so I can't watch it with you, to Renee, and Frankie Jr. watching it, and then I love, like, Frankie's like, oh, I don't want him watching that girly stuff. He's like, no, I already watched it once. I was like, please, please. And he was like, with Uncle Ray, you're like, he just had it. He's like, no, I'll sit down and watch it. It's okay. Hey, babe, wear a dress. And then go to Ray's work to start crap. He not only gets fired, but also, like, the police get called and everything. It's like, to be fair, like, it's like, yes, Ray landed the first blow, but, like, yeah, the fact is that customers coming there starting shit, like, Ray was trying to walk away, but he couldn't. Which even Renee was like, what do you want me to do? I already fucked up his life. Want me to, like, grab a gun and, like, you want me to kill him? Go ahead and give me the gun. I'll go ahead and do it. And he's like, yeah, that's some real ride or die stuff. She's like, yeah, I don't want anything to do with Ray. And he's like, oh, like, should I press charges against him? It's like, no, like, that'll make you look weak. I mean, he's just a waiter. It's like, because there's a part of you that's like, you already feel bad enough that his life is in the shitter, and you don't want more drama because you're trying to keep everything, like, you know his life has hit rock bottom. And it's like, do you actually love Frankie, or is it just kind of like you made your choice and you made your bed, so you have to lie in it type of thing? Because it doesn't seem like you're in love with him, because it's more so like you're afraid of Frankie, because you don't want to be on Frankie's bad side, because if he even gets a hint of there's something between you and Ray, if he finds out about this baby, she's probably scared, like, not only will he'll kill Ray, he'll most likely kill me. So Frankie is that type of dude. Especially because Jorge's up there putting this Ray stuff in his head too, so that doesn't help with the situation. So you just kind of feel bad. And that moment, like, she was going down on him, it's like, oh, like, there's just, well, because I'm thinking, like, I'm surprised, I mean, it might be an issue later on, but in that moment, I was like, I'm surprised he's not going to be a little bothered, because this is exactly how Ray got in trouble in the first place. It was like the videotape of this very, like, act. So I was wondering, I'm surprised, like, that didn't, but it's just like, oh, he just probably caught up in the ecstasy of, like, oh, man, this feels so good. But I'm just like, also kind of gives you, like, a little, well, I was about to say, like, man, it's the craziest thing, because, like, Riley, it's Vocal, I'm probably, like, butchering her last name. It's just, like, I just saw her in, pop up, spoilers, most recently in an episode of Legacy, so it's just kind of like that. I mean, because it's, like, yeah, because, like, it went from, like, the originals, to this, I want to say. There might have been some crossover. I don't remember, because I know she has popped up. I know she popped up in season 2 for, like, an episode, as well. So, but it's just like it's the whiplash of just like, oh, you're just in Legacies, and now I'm here watching you in this, like, a couple days apart. I just think I would say that's interesting when, like, an actress and stuff that's, like, airing, like, pretty close to each other, or at least around the same time. I would say that's interesting. But yeah, like I said, like, Ray was making good strides, but then he gets called in by the police. Nikki comes to pick him up, which is like, oh, man, like, because Nikki's so disappointed in him. It's like, oh, you suck, like, you're terrible. It's like, you want to disappoint me and disappear, that's fine, but don't do it, don't make mom get dragged into your shit. And it's like, the sad thing is, he is trying. The fact of the matter is, the guy, like, Nikki won't know it, but it's like, that guy's a terrible dude. It's not like he started something with some Ray, but it's like, for Nikki, it's like, whatever, like, you try to make mom believe you've changed, but you haven't. I see for who you are. Because every time he wants to believe in his dad does something to screw up. It's like, the sad thing, he was trying, but this life isn't for him. It's just like, because for now, it's like, right, my attempt at a regular, boring job. Because he was saying, like, oh, Abuzo and son of, like, we could, you know, we fix shitholes and stuff like that. Like, they were joking about that. Like, you know, because Nikki was happy to have his dad around. I was like, oh, things are better. Dad is better. And I was like, no, you're the same asshole you've always been, Ray. Get out my car. And, you know, he's like, I am sorry, you know. So he probably is going to stay away despite everything. But then, like, he races over. I was like, where is he going to go? And he goes over to Alan's, which Alan's like, I can't help you. You're too toxic to this case. Even if I wanted to throw you a bone, I can't. Now, I'm not saying, I'm not co-signing anything illegal, but if a civilian finds out some information and gives it to us, well, I can't help but, you know, use it. So, like, Ray's going to not necessarily be fully on a payroll, but it's not like it's not like Alan hasn't officially co-signed, but he unofficially co-signs like Ray doing some civilian work of his own, because for him it's like, I got to get back to it, because this regular normal life, it's not me. Like my attempt at trying to live a normal life, nah, screw that. Like it's blown up in my face, but I got to go back to being a cop to find some equilibrium, because it's just like, you know, to me, it's just like he hasn't fixed himself. Now, granted, that was an outlier of a situation. It's like, who knows? Like, I think probably the argument is like, even if given a chance, if the Frankie thing didn't happen, Ray would have screwed up initially, and at some point anyway. I mean, to be fair, he is banging his married wife. He is banging his married boss. So there's that angle to it. Like, things would have probably conventionally. I mean, hell, like, he went drinking with her and blacked out, because he's still, like, yeah, he rolled up at, like, Renee's place and stuff like that, but that's all we know. We don't know if he ever did anything else. Doesn't seem like it, but it's not like he's in a good place, you know? He took steps and he's still there, but I think there's still a lot to work on, and going back to work isn't going to make things better. In fact, it's going to make things worse. And I think that's what we see in the trailer later on when him and Jackie bump heads, because he starts trying to handle this whole Frankie and Jorge thing, like, from his own angle. And it's like, right, you don't have a badge. This is most likely the type of thing that can get you beat up, if not worse, killed. So, but we'll see. We'll see how this plays out, whether, especially because he is probably going to stay away from his son and his ex, just because it's like, right, I'm not going to do them any good. My son made it pretty clear. This is supposed to be on his terms, so I made that clear that it was on his terms. If he wants something to do with me, and if he's telling me to stay away from him and his mom, I have to respect that. So we'll see if he actually will. We'll see if Ray ends up spiraling. But he seems like, well, he was in a good place, and then, like, not such a good place, but now he feels like, yeah, I'm back on top of it. It's like, nah, I'm sure you're going to really start spiraling now, because you're back in that, because it's him he's going to definitely be falling back into old habits, since he's, you know, not officially back on it, but he's kind of unofficially back on it. So, like, a lot of those bad habits he has, it's going to start formulating, so. Other than that, obviously Charmaine is kind of enjoying the luxury of kind of working with Frankie and Jorge, but she plans on cutting Osito in, because she's like, yeah, like, yeah, I got some product, I'll send it your way. And it's like, oh, did Frankie send you? It's like, no, like, Frankie don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, that's bad. The last thing you want it, because even he was like, yo, like, watch out for, like, Jorge and Frankie, they're vipers. I'm like, and the fact is that she's cutting a side business with Osito. Now, side business would be a bad thing already, because Frankie's like, oh, you cutting someone in, you doing business with someone else. We're supposed to be business partners. You ain't telling me what? Because, like, Charmaine's like, yeah, SOB can't even get my name right. So there's that. But also I'm like, Frankie's Frankie in that regard of, like, him and Jorge probably wouldn't be too happy about that. Plus Osito, because you know Frankie's got beef with Osito, already looking at him like a rat. So he's going to be doubly pissed the moment he finds out about that. So Charmaine definitely wants to be careful about that. But at the very least, it can help Osito, because it's like, right, if you're selling drugs in here, you'll get friends. So not as many people will be so quick to turn on you. But I don't know, Frankie's reach can go a long way. So we'll have to wait and see where things kind of go on that front. But I'm curious. It's definitely going to be interesting if, like, he's getting this benefit from Charmaine while also taking advantage of being Alan's CI. So he's going to be playing both sides of the situation, like taking advantage of Alan while also getting business and taking care of himself, especially if he's able to go over into the easy time like Alan kind of promises him and he wants to, which I'm sure Jackie's still not going to be copacetic with that. But also on top of that, because even Charmaine's like, oh yeah, like, I'm going to help you out, because it's not like you're going to be locked up forever, especially if things with Alan goes the right way. It'll definitely all work out for Osito like that. But, you know, you already got a target on your back from Frankie already. This is just going to double up if he finds out. But the whole point is, don't let him find out. But we'll see. I think it's only a matter of time before he does. But I'm definitely interested to see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.